Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the TCG Zone. Today, I just wanted to highlight a couple of design choices that I noticed, and in today's episode, we're going to look at specifically design choices based on effective use of using a card versus using a base ability. And I just thought it would be a good design analysis and to see how worthwhile some different effects are. And as you can see here on the screen, we have Moment of Peace, which is a one cost event that says give a shield token to a unit. When the set first came out, and this is from set 1, and this game first came out, even as a brand new player, I thought, wow, Moment of Peace is terrible. Now that we're on our third set, and I've played this game way more, I can say confidently, wow, Moment of Peace is terrible. And then I want to analyze why is Security Complex barely played at all, as well as Moment of Peace, but some of the other bases are actually worthwhile, and maybe why they're so effective. Well, first of all, Security Complex doesn't exactly mirror Moment of Peace. The first line of text difference is a non-leader unit. Or really, that's the only difference. But besides that, we see that a one cost event equates to 5 points of life. And that is pretty significant on your base total. And I can maybe see why in this case, because because of the action economy, being able to put a shield token on something when you have no resources available can be particularly strong. But again, it doesn't target leaders, and leaders are primarily what you want to put your shield tokens on, or just your really strong sentinels. And so when I first tried this Security Complex tech out on a deck, I tried it out with a few things like Boba Fett Blue from set 1, and then when Gar Saxon came out in set 2, I tried Gar Saxon Double Blue with Security Complex, and it was okay. There's that 4/4 for 5 money, a unit, I forget what it's called, but it has Sentinel when it's upgraded. And I thought it'd be pretty strong with that card and also Lieutenant Childson, Security Complex being able to give a shield to a pretty large unit like that, a pretty large Sentinel unit. I thought would be pretty powerful, but the 25 health ended up really crippling my ability to make it into the late game or to really just finish out any games. And so Moment of Peace is a pretty bad card. Um, it's pretty hard to justify any copies in a deck to put a shield on even on a leader for one cost. And so I think it's pretty weak. Of course, my design question or my design preferences is not to say that I dislike the card by any means. I like that the card exists. I just think that it is a below average card and maybe it was intended for limited or sealed or draft play rather than constructed, which is fine. Security Complex, on the other hand, as a rare base, I think it was really intended for constructed. And I see the value in making all of the rare bases from the first set come out at the same life total. But I just don't see a lot of value in the 25 health for giving a shield token to a non-leader unit. I think that for this base to improve, it has to give a shield token to any unit, or it has to be changed to like 26, 27 life instead of 25. I think it's just a bit too much. Um, so I would give Security Complex a pretty low rating. It has not been very successful for me, And then Moment of Peace, well, it costs 1 money, but it's pretty terrible. Okay, well, let's move on and let's see another example. Okay, so Jeddah City and Disarm, very similar to Security Complex and Moment of Peace. Disarm is a 1-cost event that says give an enemy unit -4, -0 for this phase. Jeddah City says epic action, give a non-leader unit -4, -0 for this phase. Again, Jeddah City says non-leader versus Disarm, which just says an enemy unit. I think that Jeddah City is extremely weak, just like Security Complex, for a variety of reasons. So, a good player can make the most of Jeddah City and can oftentimes make it such that you end up saving that 5 points of life, whereas it's much more difficult to justify the 5 points of life with Security Complex. I think a good Jeddah City player can reasonably do so. However, I dislike the fact that you have to be just a superb, like, top level Star Wars Unlimited sequence player in order to get the maximum value of Jeddah City, which is justifying the 5 health that you are losing from a normal 30 HP base. For example, to give a unit -4, -0 for a phase, if that unit has 5 or more power, you're not actually yielding back the 5 health just on the 1 unit. What do I mean by that? Well, the -4, -0, it's not -5, -0, which it should be, just base stat line in order to reap the 5 health that that unit might have swung in an attack at your base. And so, how to sequence it, you might have to be pretty sneaky and go for a double attack on a larger unit with some of your smaller units, and then with its -4, -0, you end up just trading better against a unit than you otherwise would have. Or if you try and play a more control-based deck and you have a lot of sentinels and you can give something -4, -0, so you have another turn to stall until the late game, it's okay. And then lastly, I've seen a couple elements of success with Jeddah City in a Grand Inquisitor yellow deck, because you might give something -4, -0 so they don't kill one of your strong units that you want to ready up after dealing damage to it. Or on one occasion, I've seen good success in a Kylo yellow deck, just because giving -4, -0 to something that otherwise would have killed your Kylo ended up being pretty strong. But overall, I think Jeddah City is a pretty weak base, and Disarm is, again, unplayable. So Moment of Peace and Disarm are terrible. Security Complex is okay, I think it's pretty bad, and Jeddah City is also pretty bad. But then we get into the next one, Energy Conversion Lab. This is, not just my opinion, but probably most people's opinion, that this is the best base in the entire game, and it almost makes it incredibly difficult for any green leader in the game to be successful, precisely because double command or double green is bad, and you want to run Energy Conversion Lab with almost every leader that you could potentially imagine playing it with, because it is that powerful. Play a unit that costs 6 or less from your hand, give it ambush for this phase. That's what Energy Conversion Lab says, and it is so strong. And I think even average players, and maybe even poor players or like new players, could make Energy Conversion Lab save them at least 5 health points from their base. And so, just baseline, it's very strong. I do remember the early days when some people thought that the epic action on Energy Conversion Lab allowed them to play a unit for free and also give it ambush, and then it was broken. Thankfully, that didn't last too much longer after the first 2 weeks that I was playing at my locals. But again, here, the really, really strange thing for how broken this is that timely intervention is also one cost. And it says play a unit from your hand, give it ambush for this phase, and it also has smuggle for 2 command. And it is so strong. I think it is probably the most powerful smuggle card in the game. I know some people might say that it's a tech or DJ specifically with that combo, but man, I think timely intervention is just so strong to be able to give any unit ambush and then to be able to smuggle it out later. It's very powerful. The fact that it also costs 1 is just really head scratching to me. So we have seen a theme from the first couple of bases that their comparison costs 1. And then it also yields a 5 life deficit on the base. But just based on how they actually play out, they really don't justify. Like Jeddah City giving -4, -0, I think is perfectly reasonable to actually have it start at 26 health. And we know that eventually, because set 3 came out, they wouldn't have a problem with alternating the 25, 30 health bases because Petronaki Arena and POW City give us 26 health bases. And then we see Droid Manufacturer giving us 24. And then the red one that draws a card, I forget what it's called, that is also 25 again. So we are able to see some different life totals even on bases of the same set. So timely intervention, extremely powerful. It's just a design choice that I noticed, observed, that I thought was pretty interesting. So again, Disarm and Moment of Peace, terrible. Jeddah City, Security Complex, pretty bad. Timely Intervention and Energy Conversion Lab are absolutely broken. There's a last base and event combo that I wanted to look at and just to discuss some of the ideas and summarize some of the things I've been thinking. And that is, of course, with Tarkin Town and Open Fire. So I couldn't find a good comparison to Tarkin Town outside of like Open Fire and Daring Raid. Daring Raid, of course, is able to deal 2 damage for 1 cost, but it's also able to target a base, which Tarkin Town is not able to do. And then Open Fire can target, it can deal 4 damage, which is 1 more than Tarkin Town, and it doesn't require it to be a damaged unit, it can just be any unit. So we don't have quite the same event comparison to Tarkin Town as we do for the other bases and events. But Open Fire, I think, is pretty close. I know there's that new card in set 3 that allows you to do 3 damage total spread out across 2 units, which is, again, 3 damage. Maybe that's a little bit more similar, but again, it's targeting 2 units versus Tarkin Town still targeting 1. The point of all of this, though, is that Tarkin Town, dealing 3 damage to a damaged non-leader unit, it's still playable. It's still pretty strong. It is feels bad sometimes that it's a non-leader, but so are the other 3 that's not Energy Conversion Lab. Those 3 are also non-leaders, but Tarkin Town is still fairly strong, just being able to deal damage. And then we can see maybe why it's so strong, even though it targets a non-leader, because of how the scaling works in dealing damage. So what do I mean by that? Well, we have Open Fire here, which costs 3 money for 4 damage, and Daring Raid, which costs 1 to deal 2 damage. And we don't have a 2 cost event. Maybe somewhere in the middle between Open Fire and Daring Raid, we would have a 2 cost event that could deal 3 damage to a damage non-leader unit, but it would probably have to be somewhere in between Open Fire and Daring Raid for that design space to make sense. And if that's the case, then we would have 5 health equate to a 2 cost event. And so I just see this sort of irregularity in some of these cards costing 1, where their effect on a base costs 5 health on your base, versus Tarkin Town, where it would arguably be a 2 cost event to yield 5 health. And again, this isn't to be critical necessarily of like the designers. I just find it really fascinating, and it's just something I've observed and thought about as I've been playing. And I really hope that all of my listeners and viewers are able to sort of think about these design choices as well, because I just think it makes the game more fun, honestly. And I like to discuss some of these decisions with my opponent after a game and just talk about some of these things that we've noticed about the game. So Tarkin Town, of course, is probably a B rate base, with ECL being A rank, A plus rank, of course, and then Security Complex and Jedha City being D or F. But yeah, that's all I wanted to discuss today, guys. Let me know your thoughts on this event cost comparison to base abilities, and I might do some more design space thought out videos in the future. If you liked this video, please like it. If you loved it, please subscribe, and make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. And as always, until the next one, peace out.